Welcome to the Self-Service Generation podcast, where we explore how technology impacts, improves, and enables the customer experience that we all expect from businesses and organizations that we engage or work with. Don't worry, we only keep it to 20 minutes, so hopefully you'll find it interesting. Thanks very much.
Welcome to the Self-Service Generation podcast. You have me, Gavin, and you have here Steve as well.
Hello there. Yeah, we're in team colours today, so that's good.
Yeah, I think we've got our own stylist, the same stylist. I think that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got a different hairstylist, so you've got a bit bouffant today.
Yeah.
I didn't mention it earlier, but you know, it's a hell of a haircut you got going on there.
It's usually why we do this. Most people only listen to us and don't actually watch the video content on YouTube.
No, that's right. Yeah. These are all useful references for a podcast, but you know, just imagine, you know, we'll do some descriptive elements as we go along.
If you ever watched Johnny Bravo when you were younger, it probably has some remnants of that. But I always was a fan of Cartoon Network. But yeah, on the fashion side of sense, maybe if we had one of those like smart mirrors. Where you can kind of go in and look at what clothes you have. Maybe if you could connect that to the people that you're networking with to make sure that you don't find yourself wearing the same clothes.
Okay, all right. That's a good tangent. I like the segue. I like the attempt to segue.
Here to help.
It's very tenuous. It's very tenuous. Don't think it's going to take off. I'm not quite sure. Maybe it would. It
is a common occurrence though. Like I went to an event a few months ago and everybody was in a navy suit. Like I'm kind of thinking that, you know, if you wanted to stand out, it's kind of difficult in those scenarios. And me and Paul in the office literally yesterday were both wearing a navy top and navy shorts. So, you know, it's a problem. I definitely think needs solving. Whether it's a multi-billion-pound problem that needs solving, who knows?
But you two do tend to walk around together arm in arm anyway, don't you? You know, I've noticed that. You know, and that's fine. And it's great to have such a good working relationship, I feel. You know.
Yeah. No, definitely. So the topic for today, obviously hinting with that smart mirrors comment and loose and tenuous link is smart homes. We want to talk through the different things that we've seen. Obviously, it's more prevalent now than ever. All of us have the assistants most of us have the assistants in our homes, and many of us are starting to have the other elements that kind of we have in place to try and make our lives simpler and easier. And it's a very much a changing space.
Yeah, you mentioned like we've got like all the smart assistants and stuff like that. I had to say it quite carefully.
Maybe we should say it loud and then say
don't
play this podcast.
Oh dear.
Our listener numbers would skyrocket to at least.
Do you think just keep walking around people's houses telling them to play the podcast?
Just play the podcast on a radio really loud and just shout, Alexa, play the Self-Service Generation podcast on Spotify, please.
No, she can't hear you.
Doesn't like my voice, obviously.
Well, she's ignoring you. She knows you don't belong to my household. I mean, but that, do you know that technology was the fastest growing technology since the DVD?
Was it? Wow.
Amazing, isn't it? It was it because look, let's be honest. I mean, Google didn't really do much of a deal on their stuff, but Amazon just went, have this for 30 quid or something, and everybody went, well, for 30 quid, I'm going to give it a go, you know.
Yeah, and everyone.
So they just made it super cheap, and that's why DVDs went off originally, but you know, because the players just become super cheap.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that if you just make it accessible, people will give it a go.
Yeah. You know? And now it's in everything. You get it in your TVs. You press the button and ask it to play you something. It's
it's everywhere. You know. So
I use it for turning my TV off when my son's watching it when he shouldn't do.
Oh, okay.
Downstairs in the morning, I'm like, is it on? Yes. Turn it off.
Turn it off. Yeah, great. That's good.
Of whatever Paw Patrol or whatever it is is watching these days.
Oh, look, they're really quick to set up, and they're not. No, you know, none of this stuff is rocket science. I've got a bizarre Philips telly, which is quite new, but it doesn't work. It's supposed to work with Amazon Alexa, but it doesn't. And I've tried hard,
Yeah.
But so a lot of stuff it's claiming to do it, but they've got a bit of a fail here and there. But if you can get the stuff to work, then it works really well for your device or service, whatever you're doing. You've got to get this.
I find it brilliant. For me, it's a big saver as well. So I have a few fish tanks in my house, and all of them are on smart plugs. So if I need to do a water change, I'll just turn off. Like they're automatically scheduled to come on and turn off at different times to make sure they get enough light and not solve problems.
Yeah.
But also, if I want to do a water change, I can just turn the heaters and the filters off remotely without having to go around the back of a very heavy tank to play around with plugs, and then I'm away. I haven't quite gone as far as some people who've got automatic water changing systems built in.
Wow.
I think it might be problematic if I start suggesting I have pipe work all the way around my living room, but
yeah. See, that's a complicated thing. It's kind of, well, it is automation, but it's plumbing.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
when you're dealing with like hundreds of liters worth of water, I tend to try and play a little bit safer.
Yeah. I wouldn't start knocking holes in your tanks or something, or trying to get that to work.
But we're starting to see more of it as well. I have the Nest doorbell, which I use, which tells me who's at the door.
Yeah.
Sometimes it confuses my father-in-law with his brother, which you kind of get anyway. Sometimes it confuses the delivery man with my father-in-law. But so it's not perfect, but it's quite handy to have that all set up, and obviously means we can have a conversation with them and say, look, you just we're not chuck it in the bin. We had this conversation in the last episode. Put it in the dedicated delivery box that we have, not the very deep bin that requires someone with giant arms and legs to actually get into. Amongst
stuff that I actually thrown out, so it is rubbish and it will go out the front.
Do we have a mattress update? I just want to check in. So anyone who
last podcast, and it's been weeks.
Go back and listen. So let's not tell them what happened, because they need to go back and listen to get the context to the previous podcast. But for me, it would be good to get an update to see, has it arrived?
And yes, it has. Okay. So finally, but I was having a discussion. I was having a discussion with the crew, and I said, I've got my new mattress, by the way, all lovely, and it's nice mattress and that type of stuff, but it isn't my bed. Well, it isn't my bed yet. It's a new mattress, isn't it? I haven't slept in it for a while, so it's not my bed. So now I've got to get used to the fact I've got this new mattress, and it's be a while before it's my bed.
Didn't they give you all those emails to tell you how to make it your bed?
Yeah, kind of. Make it your own. Epic fail on the box though. The nice QR code. Thought I'll do that because it's one of those complicated rolled up ones. Have you ever had one of those rolled up mattresses? This is my first time.
All the mattresses I bought told me not to fold them.
Oh, okay. Well, this one was folded up, and I thought they've delivered the wrong one because it's too narrow for the bed. And I thought, because I put it on there, I went, oh, that's too narrow. That's wrong. And I just, he's gone now. And then loads of shrink wrap stuff around it. Then all of a sudden it went poof, 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 and just expanded and started blowing itself up. But I tried to follow the instructions on the box on the QR code. Went to a 404 page on their website. That's handy.
No.
Yeah, epic fail. Fail.
We were talking about how bad their follow-on service was. So this just adds to it.
They just keep breaking it. So they've clearly got. Well, he must have done you, but I bet they don't know, because nobody can be bothered to tell them because they don't get back to you.
No one even knows how to get in touch with them once they've bought a mattress. That's not the problem. But linking back to that kind of from the smart home side of things, and kind of being able to track and understand where deliveries are, making sure they don't put it in a bin. There's also, you got smart locks now as well, so obviously you can see if somebody smart locks.
Oh, locks. Oh yeah.
So you can full on just let the delivery person in, even make himself a cup of tea. You could actually put the kettle on, because you have a smart kettle, right? You see he's there, you're like, right, I'll put the kettle on for him. You could have it automated.
Okay, all right.
There you go.
Do you know what? I'm not sure that's going to take on. Letting your delivery driver in your house. That. But if
you're away,
too far, Gavin. You're very trusting. It's very nice, but don't do it. All right.
Yeah, but you know, if he's away, he could also feed my fish for me. Although, to be honest with you, I have a feeder for that, so that's
Or
not as
nick
smart.
them. or pinch them in little bags.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't go down that route. Well, I mean, in seriousness, there's loads of stuff that I haven't kind of put it in place and then didn't really realise how useful it is. Like, so we do have automation through like the smart thermostats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of nice. And you start doing it and go, you know, tell Alexa to turn the temperature up and all that sort of stuff. And it's really quite.
And when your
great.
wife's at home and she puts the heating up, I can be at work and turn the heating back down
Put
again.
the heat right up, yeah, really up. And she thinks she's getting hot flushes, but
it's not Malaga. Like, come on, look. Go outside.
Or turn the lights off and then starts playing scary music on right. But anyway, apart from the malicious elements,
yeah,
the practical elements are that, of course, when I'm not in the house, the heating doesn't come on. So it's saving a fortune for you forgetting, or it's got a fixed time, or, you know, all those bits. I mean, you know, people still come in and turn their heating on, you know, manually with a little dial and that, or press some buttons. But most of the time it was always on a schedule anyway, historically.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, for the last couple of years, when I've had this stuff, it's just on a thermostat, which is fine. So if it's warm enough, it's not going to turn it on. If it's cold, it'll turn it on. But if we're not there, it's not going to come on because it knows we're not around.
Yeah.
Just by us working out the door, because it knows we're not near. And that stuff is the stuff that's really useful for as a service for the home user, you know, that type of stuff.
And especially if you link that back into kind of the care industry as well, and those people who are getting looked after in their own homes. Like we always thought, like, we had those little dials which weren't the most kind of weren't great from a dexterity standpoint, but if it's automatically managed and keeps the temperature at the right temperature, you know the person's being looked after. I know there's some organisations who will put in things like motion sensors to make sure that the person is getting up and moving around the house.
Yeah.
I'll be putting sensors on kettles to make sure they've got people coming in and socialising, sensors on toilets to making sure they're going to the toilet enough. So you can start getting this bigger range of data and understanding around this, and that's without a health visitor having to go and intrude on. And ultimately, there's a social element which you have to be conscious of as well. But if it means that if that person wants to live independently, they can live independently, safe in the knowledge that if something happens, like there'll be alert. There's a system in place to make sure they're still being looked after at the same time. There's also things like smart pill dispensers as well to make sure they're getting the medication.
Yeah, and on the water bit's really interesting, because there was a little while ago guys doing a big machine learning AI piece based on just water usage in a house, because it's a predictable pan. You come down in the morning, make a coffee, you have to go to the loo enough times during the day and things like that. So it was then giving you an overall health of the people in the house. Are they going to the loo enough? Because if they're not drinking enough. If they are, or are they actually moving about at all? You know, so are they, you know, struggling? Have they had a problem? It's like lots of early warning systems just on the usage of water, because it's such an essential part of our life, you know. And you just go, that is really kind of quite clever stuff, you know. As well
it's getting smarter now as well. So you've got a company called Withings that are working on a thing they've called UScan, which is a detection device that has a sensor cartridge in it which sits in the urinal, and it senses and understands kind of the content of people's urine. So they're looking at whether or not they can check nutrition and understand kind of what's going on with the metabolism. They can also, you can also use it and connect it with an app to track things like hormonal fluctuations as well, tracking cycle. So if you can combine those elements, and you can start understanding that to some extent the health of the person, is that you're kind of, to some extent, we talk about self-service. If you wanted to have those sorts of scans done or those sorts of measurements done, you'd be waiting, I don't know, potentially what, monthly, 6 months, depending on your situation.
Those services are very expensive. So if you've got a device you could, well, as the service, it's probably gonna have a subscription model on that anyway, but that could be a lot less intrusive than having to send bloods off and stuff like that all the time. And you've got kind of a live update. So today you didn't drink enough water yesterday, type of thing. I have loads of days, and you do look, do you? And just go, oh Jesus, I need to drink some. Just go, my God.
The colour swatch out. Or like, okay, we're in trouble there.
Looks like a pint of bitter. That does. Jesus, I need to really look at that. But you do, and so. But if you can have more defined stuff, so if you're diabetic or pre-diabetic or whatever, you're right, you've got these markers and they go, yeah, you need to do X. Well, just general, if it's getting enough information from something like that, it can say your cholesterol's high and all that type of stuff. So,
it'd be interesting to know
what you can get out of urine, I would have thought.
It'd be interesting to know how much money having something like that would save in visits or in other tests. Understanding a little bit more what the capability is. But on the other side of that, understanding what other industries could potentially benefit from technology or people having that kind of technology in their homes. Yeah. There's a whole element of people not wanting to be monitored. But, for example, there's the health insurance companies who ask their customers and say, look, if you do 10,000 steps, for example, you'll reduce your policy down. Now, if we can also understand a little bit more around the health and how you look after you, maybe you even get more almost like the tracking system for the cars. It becomes a telematics for your body type system.
Oh yeah, well the telematics is huge, isn't it? And they are doing that for health insurance. The classic one that's got a lot of advertising around is what they're called. Connected to Nuffield gyms as well. I can't remember the brand now, but they are, they will literally, if you go to the gym enough times, you log in, log out, all that type of stuff. Those visits all count towards your insurance. And it's then a lot cheaper to do that. And I think if businesses start getting involved in those IoT devices and think about those ecosystems that are out there, then that's the point. The point of our chatting and whatever is just to say, well, look, these are the opportunities to interact with the big device ecosystem. So you're there, visibility for your product or service. All those things are hugely important. They make a really strong business case, and this isn't going away. This is only going to get bigger. So if you've got a good service for that.
And that's the thing, is the way that we work is always a case of looking at where the benefits. So is it about the efficiency? Is it the efficiencies that you create, for example, by putting a bit of technology in place that means that there's a self-service element there because you're able to give that feedback straight back to your customer without them having to physically go somewhere. They can kind of manage that themselves. Does having a system like that in place allow you as an organization to provide a better service that is more unique and tailored around your customer and what their specific needs are? Because the main thing around self-service is ultimately data and information, isn't it? Like when we look at it, we go, do I have enough information to be able to do the action myself?
Yeah.
Like, if I'm using a chatbot, I want to be able to easily get the information that I want to get the information I need, or I want to take an action. And do I have enough information to do that? With the stuff that we've been doing with the health insurance and making claims, do they have enough information to feel comfortable to make a decision to make a claim themselves? And that's what all these devices ultimately are there to do. And some invisibly, in some situations, they do the job in the background without us needing to think about it. But also, they might tell us, it's cold today. Your heating might need to go up a little bit.
Well, okay. But even very seriously, the InsurTech, which we touched on with the telematics and cars and stuff, if you're doing that with any of the health insurance providers, the big ones, the big players that are starting to use this actively, to be then part of, the Android, Apple ecosystems to say, this service is included in our gym membership or our our service, and you get like a virtual personal trainer that says you've not done much steps today, do some stuff, your cardio's down, your resting heart rate's a bit high, all those types of bits. You're not getting enough sleep, which we get from other things, like a Garmin watch or something, but that's because that's very dedicated. But if you're doing that from a service out from those things, like you work for WPA. So if they go, well, okay, we'll give you a discount or give you a voucher to X or whatever it is as part of that incentive to stay with them, that's got to be considered as part of your strategy these days, I'd say.
Yeah, all interconnected and bringing everything together and create that level of automation, which streamlines the way that everyone's working.
Yeah, and like I said, so it's self-service because you just go, oh yeah, my WPA app has just said, I need to do a bit more exercise today, or didn't drink enough yesterday, or whatever. And it's a helping thing, but also in the background, it's going, well, actually, there's an incentive as well, that type of stuff, which I think is
get the value back. Yeah, and ultimately you have to incentivize, don't you? There has to be that extra value in order for people to be able to commit to that service and hand over that data to some extent. I think there's a lot of people who are probably listening to this podcast saying, I don't want to have that in my home. I don't want to give over that data. So and lots of people are like that, and you need to be able to cater for that and be like, okay, is the what I'm giving up, and is the benefit enough to kind of outweigh that? And that's ultimately down to testing and working out kind of what works.
Yeah, no, very much so, and that's always the case, isn't it? So interesting stuff. I mean, look, there's loads of stuff out there. I mean, we're IoT and home automation things, Internet of Things, just for stopping the jargon. There's so much there that you can. There's so many layers, but again, being part of the ecosystems now for any company, I think, is absolutely paramount, so that they can get some control over their own big data, making sure that they take advantage of those service opportunities and things like that. But it's got to be priority, really. Yeah,
I 100% agree. The opportunities out there, you have to just be open to them and make sure you're kind of taking over the opportunity. Brilliant. Well, thanks everybody for listening. I think that flew by. That felt like a very quick episode, but actually I think it might be one of our longer ones anyway. But it felt so easy to just flow, really quickly. Yeah, it was just easy. I think that was the main thing. But yeah, thank everyone. I really appreciate everyone for listening. Subscribe so you get updates whenever we launch new episodes, and make sure you go back and re-listen to some of the ones and find out what happened about what the context is around sleep mattresses in the previous episode.
Well, mattress disaster.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're creating a small drama on a Stefan podcast stream, all about that mattress drama.
Oh dear, brilliant. Yeah, so thanks from me.
And thanks very much from me. Thanks for listening to the Self-Service Generation podcast. We hope you enjoyed it and found it interesting. Look out for more in the series where we take deep dives around specific challenges in this space. Until next time.